Good evening and welcome to 50 Shades of Red at Night. Tonight we'll be discussing the recent election and we'll also be discussing why is it that we only see support in the Black community for certain candidates? Why is it not a universal thing that we see that spreads across party lines? All right. And tonight, like I said, we'll be having AJ and Naomi will be also here to talk and discuss some issues. How you doing?
I'm good. Okay. I'm excited to be like hosting tonight's show because
Okay.
he hosts on Mondays. So I just wanted to start the discussion with a 3-minute clip of Malcolm X speaking about the Democratic Party and about people voting and their opinions of the parties in general. So I think once we play that, we can have a full-fledged conversation based on actual fact, right? Because that's what we're here for. We're here for the facts. And I want to say that our opinions today are not meant to be ignorant. They're not meant to be negative, and they're not meant to break our people down. So let's just keep that in our mind when we're discussing this issue tonight, because it's really important and it's going to ruffle a lot of feathers given the recent election we just had.
In this crooked game of power politics here in America, the Negro, namely the race problem, integration, civil rights issue, are all nothing but tools used by the whites who call themselves liberals against another group of whites who call themselves conservatives, either to get into power or to retain power. Among whites here in America, the political teams are no longer divided into Democrats and Republicans. The whites who are now struggling for control of the American political throne are divided into liberal and conservative camps. The white liberals from both parties cross party lines to work together toward the same goal. And white conservatives from both parties do likewise. The white liberal differs from the white conservative only in one way. The liberal is more deceitful, more hypocritical than the conservative. Both want power, but the white liberal is the one who has perfected the art of posing as the Negro's friend and benefactor. And by winning the friendship and support of the Negro, the white liberal is able to use the Negro as a pawn or a weapon in this political football game that is constantly raging between the white liberals and the white conservatives. The American Negro is nothing but a political football, and the white liberals control this ball through tricks or tokenism, false promises of integration and civil rights. In this game of deceiving and using the American Negro, the white liberals have complete cooperation of the Negro civil rights leaders who sell our people out for a few crumbs of token recognition, token gains, token progress. In the New York Tribune, in an editorial dated February the 5th, 1960, they pointed out that out of 11 million qualified Negro voters, only 2,700,000 actually take time to vote. This means that, roughly speaking, only 3 million out of the 11 million Negroes who are qualified to vote take an active part, and the remaining 8 million remain voluntarily inactive. And yet it is this small minority, the 3 million Negro voters, who help determine who will be the next president. If who will be the next president can be influenced by 3 million Negro voters, it is easy to see why the presidential candidates of both political parties put on such a false show with the Civil Rights Bill and promises of integration.
Okay. So I'm going to stop it right there. Wow. So I think like that just says it all, right? The fact that he said that they use the token Negroes, the leaders of our community, to influence our people just is exactly what we're seeing right now, right? We got Beyonce waiting till the day of election day to advocate for Beto. We got Oprah going door to door for Abrams. We got Will Ferrell going door to door because our people think that celebrities, you know, are doing the right thing. And instead of researching what their policies are and what this, that, and the third is, people are going to Beyonce for answers. And Beyonce is justifying why she's, you know, advocating for these people. So we don't even know what influence this really is. We have so many minority voters who will select straight party ticket for no reason at all. And this applies to both political parties. I don't condone selecting straight party ticket for any party. I think that you pick and choose based on what you believe in, based on policy. And sometimes it just so happens to be straight party, right? But I do not think that blindly saying, oh, I know this one person on the ticket, I'm just going to hit Democrat all, really says where we are in America today in 2018 as young, educated Black people.
Yeah, I listen to that, and I think a lot of times people, they love being cliche when it comes to Malcolm. You know, people love quoting Malcolm, and they love saying certain things about Malcolm. And okay, well, let's talk about Malcolm. And you know, let me do a Malcolm X quote. Let me put Malcolm X as my background. And one thing I really like about what Malcolm said is he did not make it seem like one was necessarily better than the other. All he did was acknowledge what their purpose is. He said, the difference is, it's not necessarily saying like the white conservative is our best friend and the white liberal is our enemy. That's not what he was saying. He said what we have gotten in this country, or what we have, is we have two systems fighting for power. And the difference is, and you see it all the time, you see the white liberal, right, use deceit to make it seem like he's your friend, like he cares about you, right? But like I said, I stay in a 98% all Black district. There are no white liberals in my district. You see what I'm saying? Like, it's a situation where they love talking about Black people. They love talking about Black culture. They love making it seem like they're with us. They love making us seem like we're victims. They love all those things. But the problem is, when it comes to discussing anything of substance, they don't invest their money in our communities. They don't, you know, it's like they love listening to our music and adopting parts of like what I call more hip hop culture. But when it comes to actually doing things within our community, and I'm not saying the white conservative does so either, but if you notice how it's done as saying like, you know, I remember, I think his name is Doug Jones. Remember when he ran for senator when Jeff Sessions got kicked out, and there was this like postcard he was sending out to people in Alabama, and basically it just said, it had his picture on there. He was like, if a Black man was accused of sexually molesting kids, would he be on the ballot? And they kind of had like a, you know, he kind of had like the side eye view on there. You know, I'm like, wait a minute, this guy's white. What is he talking about? If a Black man did something, like, don't speak for us. You understand what I'm saying? Like, I get it. If you're a Black politician, then okay, that's fine. You're giving a little bit of credit. But what I think stands out so much is the whiteness that exists in both parties, but the whiteness only protrudes to one side. And I think when it comes to politics, like I said, it's not about win. I mean, you never win. So it's not about winning and losing. But what I'm saying is, can we be more honest? And if you listen to what Malcolm said, he definitely made sure he pointed out that there isn't a win that we get here, ladies and gentlemen. The only way that we can win, because he wasn't even talking about Black politicians when he talked about token Negroes, he was talking about the voter. He wasn't talking to me, in my opinion, about the Negro politician, but he was talking about the Negro who speaks up, like your Al Sharpton, right? Who gets paid he's not a politician, he doesn't make policy, but he goes and he tells everybody to basically Democrat, and that's going to make some sort of difference. So I think that's something that you know was very powerful what he said.
Well, I want to reiterate what we put on the promo for tonight. Liberals have complete cooperation of the Negro civil rights leader who sell our people out for a few crumbs of token recognition, token gains, and token progress. And it's kind of like what we touched on before the show, Solomon. We have these just these Democrats, it doesn't matter what skin color they are. Oh, I'm going to do this for the community. I'm going to do that for the community. And they're backed by these leaders who represent us, the people, right? And they agree to this, this plan, and the plan never happens. We look at all these years that people have voted Democrat in impoverished cities in America, and these cities are worse than they were 10 years ago before Barack Obama came in office, the people's savior, you know what I mean? And look at Chicago, like all downhill. I would honestly say Philadelphia is like one of the only cities that has gotten better, because they were killing cops and people every single day. We were way worse than Chicago. And now we can go weeks without a shooting. You know what I mean? So I would say that's due to probably state government and not necessarily the government as a whole, right? And that's a libertarian perspective right there. Let the state handle their people, their laws, and things like that. But I think that this topic in general is ruffling feathers because no one is here tonight. Man, it was pulling teeth to get people to come on this show and to talk about the ignorance that is Black voting. When I vote for a candidate, I research, skin color is last on my list. AJ, when you vote for somebody, what are you looking for?
Yeah, so it's funny that you bring that up. I actually did not vote straight tickets this time. My rationale was that I'm not hard right or hard left. I don't really self-identify. I'll probably say most people will probably call me center right, but I don't think that that's 100% accurate. In my opinion, most of I guess my ticket would look majority red, but there were a few standouts where the person is pretty much just off in La La Land, where I'm just like, yeah, if you just Google them, or if you just Google them or Google them and you just learn a little bit about their history and their background, and it's like, okay, can I have that person, am I comfortable having that person stand behind the things that I believe in? In some situations, yeah. Most Republicans, yes, but there are a few guys that are just totally out in La La Land where it's like, no, I'm not going to vote for this guy. Yeah. There were a few like judge seats. I'm in Texas, by the way. Okay. There were a few judge seats where I just didn't even vote. I just left it blank because I wasn't able to pull up any information on either candidate. So what I did is I just printed out how most of your county clerks will give like a sample ballot of who you expect to see on your ballot when you go into the booth. And I just did that like a homework assignment the night before, just highlighted everybody, and I took that sheet in with me to the ballot, and I just pretty much copied off what I had written.
And that's what I did. Like I put it in my phone, the same thing off the sample ballot, and just went in there and was like, okay, this is who this is who I picked for what. And I think that a lot of people aren't caring enough to do that. And that's an issue, right? Like, I don't think that because Beyonce voted for Beto.
So just for the sake of interesting debate, I would say that while you, myself, don't vote or don't choose to vote straight ticket, there is value in straight ticket. Like there's a lot of political science, I guess, kind of like quantitative value in voting straight ticket because it's more likely to represent your beliefs, and it's just it's just a lot easier.
Pause on that. I want to take a tweet from Candace Owens' Twitter, okay. And from Leo Dunson's Twitter. A guy. I love Leo Dunson. Okay, I met him. I was like, I love this guy, right? Candace Owens, and don't quote me on this. Hey, Matthew, don't quote me on this. I believe she said she voted straight ticket red just to say she was sticking with Kavanaugh. What? Yeah. Are you smoking crack? Is it crack you're smoking? What? It's the dumbest reason I've ever heard to vote straight ticket. And then Leo Dunson, what was his reason? I'm not on Facebook right now, obviously, but it was something to the effect of I voted straight red to support somebody. It was the same ideology, basically. Like, are you like what? So you think voting straight red is saying you're against women lying on men? What? No, that's not even correlated. Like, you can like Kavanaugh, that's great. But you mean to tell me you liked every Republican on there, a woman who up until a few months ago didn't even know where she stood on abortion? That's not okay. Like, we're not going to go there. So let's introduce one of our new panelists, Paul. Paul came in late to the game. Hey, Paul, you want to go ahead and unmute yourself?
Oh,
There
yeah.
you go.
Hello.
Hey, how you doing, Paul?
Doing well, doing well. I guess.
Paul, what is your political affiliation?
I'm an independent, if that's how you say it. Yeah, I'm an independent. I'm not affiliated.
Would you say you lean a certain way? Would you say you lean to the left or you lean to the right? Or would you say you're more typical to be on the Democratic side or no?
I feel like I lean left on some things and I lean right on some things.
Okay.
And, and that's where I feel like, I mean, my views are very nuanced because, you know, I try and do my own research and I don't know, but also, you know, I make sure that I'm not like what is called extreme to either side. That's the way I'd put it, because I don't know, is it Lao Tzu said, you know, there's something about being in the middle, which is good.
Okay, well, I was about to say, well, before you get in, I'll just kind of catch you up on what we were speaking about before you came in, and then I just want to know your opinion. We were watching a Malcolm X video where basically we spoke on basically how we have token people in front of our communities, and we have white liberals and we have white conservatives, and he basically was saying that neither one of them is a friend to the Black community or the Black people as a whole, but the difference is the white liberal makes it seem like he's our friend, you know, he's our buddy. They care about our issues. Oh man, look at all these things that are racist. You know, look at everything that's going on versus the white conservative that it says, well, hey, look, you know, this is how you can vote. Either you get with it or you don't. You know what I mean? It's pretty much like neither one of them, what he was saying was neither one of them have our best interests at heart. But the difference is the trickery and the deception of the white liberal that he gets it across. Maybe he gets his messaging is basically better, but neither one of them have the interests of the Black community at heart. So I'd like to get your take on what Malcolm was saying about what white liberals do versus what white conservatives do, and why do you think that the Black community, for the most part, is I mean, we're a Democratic monolith. You know, 95% of Black people vote Democrat. And voting anything otherwise, it seems like you are an outcast of your community. So what do you take on Malcolm, and why do you believe that's like that?
I think you were referring to the quote, right? The one which was in the post, the liberals have complete cooperation.
Correct.
I mean, I thought about it, and so this is how I see it. And I pulled out the race part of the equation because if you think about it, poor white people also seem to vote as a monolith and vote Republican. So now you'd ask yourself, why are people voting against their own interests? Because if you were to look at poor white people, they should be voting Democrats because Democrats are all about Medicare, Medicaid, and they're looking to, you know, enhance social programs, which a lot of poor white people depend on.
Okay.
Now, so the reasoning behind that, you know, I couldn't come to it, you know, they have their own reasons. People vote economically, people vote because of moral reasons. Now, it's difficult to dissect why Black people vote Democratic consistently. I mean, and this happens across generations. Older people, a lot of them are, you know, they've been voting the same party all throughout their life. It's one of those things, apparently, that as soon as you pick a party, it's like, what is it called? Brand loyalty. It's like a thing like that. So I guess you could say in the Black community throughout the years, it's become like brand loyalty. And, you know, you don't get the chance to question why, which I encourage everybody to do. Question why you're voting, as opposed to automatically, you know, just jumping into it. But maybe if you look at the brand and you like it, you know, like it for some reasons. Don't just like it.
Yeah, I think Paul is 100% hit the nail on the head in saying just having a reason why. And when you have if Black people voted, I think Black women in Texas voted 95, or excuse me, Beto got 95% of the Black female vote in Texas or something like this. If Black people had a clear, cogent reason why we are all voting for one party or one candidate, I wouldn't really have a problem with it. But if you ask people why they're voting, they don't even have a bad reason. Like they're not even voting for somebody just because they're the black candidate or they're the tall candidate or they're the short candidate. Like there's literally an absence of a reason. And the beauty, in my opinion, the beauty of democracy is the fact that somebody that you absolutely hate, somebody that's opposed to you, their vote counts just as much as you do. So a Klansman can go and vote and their vote counts just as much as you do. Somebody that's mentally retarded can vote and their vote counts just as much as you do. Somebody that's, whatever. And if you take the law of averages and you bring all those votes together, then whoever's elected is supposed to represent the majority of the people. And I don't have a problem when there's single issue voters or when they have a reason that's to me might seem to me to be dumb, but at least they have a reason. Whereas if you ask the majority of the black voting population right now, I would probably agree with Paul in saying that they probably can't answer the question why.
Okay, well, hold on. I just want to say something real quick because I just wanted something that Paul said to me that was interesting when he spoke of the poor white voter, and he said that he believed they should be maybe necessarily they should vote Democrat. Now, my question to you is, and this is to me is the difference. The poor white voter doesn't necessarily complain about his poor status and quote unquote blame it on somebody else. I think that's where the difference comes in. The poor white voter doesn't necessarily let's be honest, black people make up a small percentage, but we got the loudest mouth in the country. We make the most noise. So my thing is I do understand how these rural white people, like I said, they have been voting Republican all their life and they're still poor. But the mindset and the mentality is they're not poor because of what the government should technically be doing for them. They're poor because they're just poor. They're not necessarily looking for the government as their quote unquote way out. And I do understand that, but I think sometimes when I know that's always been the comparison, the poor white voter versus the poor black voter. So my question is what is the poor white voter saying? Is the poor white voter normally all they're saying is, hey, look, just don't mess with my country type stuff.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
That's the $1 million question.
It's on a quote unquote a patriotic level. But when it comes to us, it seems like we do the same thing from the right. We'll say, hey, look, you've been voting Democrat all your life, and what has it brought you? But at the same time, it's to me, like I said, because I'm the libertarian in the group, I don't necessarily like that either, only because I don't think it's the government's job to help us out of those situations. But that's the reason why I vote, and that's the reason why I believe in what I believe in. But when the counter is white people are on welfare too, the one thing that I always look at, and the one thing I wish we could start to kind of gravitate the conversation is, let's stop comparing ourselves to white people. Let's stop making the white comparisons. You know what I'm saying? Because if we talk about any issue, abortion, they say, oh, well, white girls get abortions too. You know what I'm saying? We talk about, government programs. Well, shoot, there's a whole lot of white people in trailer parks on food stamps, but they don't talk about it. Mm-hmm. Let's move the conversation to a higher level and just say, hey, look, I'm not worried about what white people do. Mm-hmm. I'm worried about trying to uplift my people in my community. So we need to look for the better advantage. You understand what I'm saying? I wish we were talking on it a higher level, black people, we all over the Ivy League. Well, Asian people in the Ivy League too, it's never nothing positive. You know what I mean? It's never on something that to me can uplift us. It's always on something that people are trying to make a negative stat, or if it's crime or anything else, something like that. It's always, well, white people shoot people too, or well, white people commit crimes, or well, white people are in jail. You know what I'm saying? It's it's always this big kind of divide that just keeps separating us. And we're always making this white comparison. So
if I may interject and just add,
yeah,
the people voting against their interests, one of the things which is I think I was listening to a few, I'm not sure where I got this from, but I got it from somewhere else. And one of the questions they asked is, if you look at Republican voters or just the Republican base, they're very religious. The black community is very religious. How does that not come into play? If you look at the Democratic circles. So that's something which I feel black people should take a look at, because I would say the black community has very similar moral alignment, about, religion with Republicans compared to Democrats. But for some reason, they never consider that something important. And that's something black people consider important. They go vote on Sunday, It's kind of like, How is that not coming to play? But I was gonna say there was an SNL skit last year, I think, or the year before, the one with Tom Hanks with the Black Jeopardy. That was a really good skit because, you know, as you were saying, why are we dividing? You know, why would you divide yourselves, you know, just because you're Black or white or anything? There's a lot we have in common. There's a lot Black people have in common with white people who are, you know, not well off, you know? And I don't know why people don't look at that. That's just an interesting question.
Well, I think it comes down to identity politics, honestly. And that can mean anything that you identify with, right? So like you just said, the whole religion thing, and I'll say this from my personal experience, I go to a church that is predominantly white. It's like a new generation church, right? We've got like a band and cool stuff like that. We don't really read out the Bible. And people who go to these like real deep-rooted Southern type of churches, right, where it's holy water and gospel and you go in tongues and you're in church for 5 hours, they feel like I don't go to church. Like my church isn't the same as theirs. So they don't identify with what I identify as a church, right? And I think
I was gonna say, is your praise and worship leader have an acoustic guitar when he starts?
He actually does. But here's the funny thing: he's Black. He's Black though, so whatever.
No, I'm just messing with you. Continue. I'm sorry.
No,
go ahead. I'm messing with you.
It kind of like is the same thing, right? So in politics, it's kind of like I'm gonna go with who I think I, you know, can relate to the best, and I'm gonna actually play a slideshow really quick to bounce off of that because I've been in the. Matthew said he came to from that type of church, the 5-hour church, speaking in tongues. My church is 45 minutes. Okay.
Yeah, I've been in both. I grew up in both.
I ain't going back to 5 hours, but no, I think the slideshow I'm gonna play, it's from the Shade Room. A lot of the posts, it's the comments in the Shade Room. Now we know the Shade Room is like Black TMZ, right?
Right.
And this is where our people, the people now, the new voters, the constant people who are complaining about our president, these are what they're feeling, you know, regarding voting and politics and things like that. And when I'm just going to read some of them, but you're going to be like, what? This is what they really think? It's insane. It's almost like nobody finished high school. And I hate to say that, but that's how they come across in regard to important issues of today. So give me a second.
Okay, yeah. While you're loaded then, I just want to say that and I know we talked about the church, and that is one of the disconnects that I have. See, the Black church versus the Christian conservative. The Christian conservative is overly Republican. The Christian Black person is overly Democrat. The majority of your heavyweight Black pastors are all like heavy Democratic supporters.
Yeah.
And
I would say not only that, on the opposite side, the left, the extreme left is maybe not even saying that they're non-religious, but there's a healthy contingent that's anti-Christian. That's just very bluntly anti-Christian. So if you're Christian, it would behoove you to align yourself with people that are going to pass policies that reflect your religious ideology.
Yeah.
That doesn't mean that you just go YOLO right, but it's something that you might want to pay some attention to if you're a person of certain faith and you're considering voting for people that are actively blaspheming your faith on TV. You know, that could be a red flag if faith is an important thing in your life.
Correct. Yeah, I definitely agree with you on that because I know me and my mom, she goes to Creflo Dollar's church. And, you know, Creflo's huge here in Atlanta, you know what I mean? And it's a situation where, you know, I'm not going to tell you my mom's political affiliations, but, you know, sometimes she feels uncomfortable at church because it's a situation where there is a level of uncomfort that exists by just on this topic. So we're just gonna keep this conversation going until you hit the share button. Then I was gonna shut up. So yeah, okay. So here we go. So then, okay, go ahead, Naomi. You good?
Sorry, I didn't want to cut you off. You know.
No, you were fine. I was just trying to keep the conversation so we weren't just sitting here in silence until you showed the comments. Go ahead. All right, so let's see it.
Okay, people are really blaming Beyonce for Beto O'Rourke's loss. They're blaming her because she waited till the day of election day to post. And they said if she really wanted to support him, she would have done it beforehand to influence voters the correct way. Okay. NAACP, breaking news, Georgia posts or extends voting hours. We're going to touch on this in depth because is this even constitutional at this point that we're doing this? We're just saying screw the political system. Here we go, the comments. Blame the Cubans in Florida who swear they are white and think Republicans view them as equals. And this is coming from a fat white person. Next time a hurricane hits, I'm a need for Florida and Texas to keep that same energy. Wow, we had one job. We did our job. It's not our fault. Our state is filled with 4 million racist, ignorant idiots. And this is because Florida is red now. Let's see, they're stuck in their ways that they literally go to the polls like I'll suffer 4 more years before I let a black man run the Senate. And they're talking about Florida again.
Okay, well, time out. Wait, see, but that shows the ignorance. I'll let a black man run the Senate. He was running for governor. You see what I'm saying? Like,
none of it's based in fact, right? So then we have this woman right here. You have to understand Florida is full of retired, old, white, racist folk. Let's face it. It's just a red state. Okay. And then that's pretty much it. I mean, I had a lot more, but the profanity and the just sheer ignorance of it was killing my vibe, so I didn't share it.
I got you.
Yeah, part of that just super toxic, just social crap.
But these are the people who are voting, and they're so pissed off at Beyonce, man. What did Beyonce do? She was living her life. Why does it matter?
The only thing I will say is on the. I'm very confident that there's nothing in the Constitution that prohibits
extending
voting access based on time.
It is. Wait, time out. That is in the state constitution now.
Right. So that's what I'm saying. And if it's not in the federal constitution, if it's not in the federal constitution, then it would be under the auspices of the state legislature. So yeah, if it's in the
state actually runs its own elections and they can decide.
Mm-hmm.
The only thing that's probably prescribed is the day, which has been the Tuesday. I don't know since when. Like it's been like the second Tuesday of November or something.
Yeah, and the Constitution is specifically worded not to say anything about voting, but saying that you can't restrict access to voting or voting rights based on.
The Constitution is specific.
But it also seems they went through the legal process. So that's what you do. You take a law. Mm-hmm. You file a lawsuit saying you want this is unconstitutional, and if they want it through the Constitution, through Georgia's constitutional process, then I feel all right, good for them. Their strategy.
This is an issue. Why is nobody okay? This is an issue because race is playing a role in this. First of all, the tweet came from the NAACP, right? They're bad for her, obviously. And most of the people who are advocating her online and in the street, and they're mad that she lost, are Black people. These are white people. She did lose technically, but she didn't lose because she extended the voting hours. So now, but this is my point as a general perspective, right? Because they extended those hours, this opens other states up to do so.
They can. I mean, that's.
No, why is that? What?
That's the way the government. That's the way that the founding fathers designed our government.
But this is why we have hierarchy and things like that. This is not okay. This can't continue to do this. Every election, we're going to do this now. This is what's going to happen. I think this is the double-edged. I think this is the bad side of the double-edged sword of kind of like having the libertarian outlook, where it's like it's great that you have this liberty, but sometimes it's going to go against your interests, and you're just going to have to kind of swallow it and accept that as a cost of having a lot smaller government or a government where you can kind of do what you want from state to state. Go ahead, kind of like the opportunity cost. Sorry.
I don't really feel that strongly because I'm not in Georgia. I didn't vote. I wasn't part of campaigning or anything. I'm in North Carolina, but from looking at just information I've read, everybody who feels strongly about it will say this happened and this happened. And that is why we have the courts. And that, the courts are supposed to be impartial, that's why you go to you file a lawsuit, you say, oh, this happened. The judge is supposed to be like, here's both sides, then they, bring the facts out and they deliberate it. So I feel, based on, what's happened and what's gonna happen,
Fair?
What?
You think it's so? Both of you, Solomon, where do you stand on this? Do you think it's fair?
Well, that's my whole thing. Like,
What's fair?
going back to he's talking about.
We're addressing. What do you mean? What's fair?
I guess go ahead, Naomi.
I'm talking about starting this trend now, because that's what it's going to be. It's going to be a trend of extending voting hours and trying to get more votes in the back door. It's, so it's going to be a trend. I like, obviously.
Well, okay, hold on 1 second. This is my take on the entire thing. It needs to be decided beforehand. Like, to me, I feel like it's just almost like if we're playing basketball, right? If we're saying, okay, first to 10, when your team stays on the court, and then we get to 10, you say, oh, no, man, my bad, we playing at 15. Well, that's not the rules we agree with. It's time for you to go ahead and move off the court. You understand what I'm saying? Because we agreed to the rules before we played. My thing is, I wouldn't care if they said, hey, look, election, we can have an election week for all I care. You can let as many people vote, but it better be done before the election. My problem is, it seems like it's being extended from an unconstitutional, from a state perspective, because now it's like, okay, if I say votes must be turned in the day of the election, if I receive a vote November 7th, then it can't be calculated, because I can't go into the voter booth on the 7th, the day after the election, and
But
vote.
you gotta account for contingencies. What if you go line up on the 6th and guess what? They run out of ballot paper. Does that mean your vote doesn't count anymore? If
That's their fault. I don't think that.
I think they already have laws.
Yeah, I was gonna
There's
say.
already statute that most states have statutes.
Yeah, most states have statutes.
What
that
I
cover
think
it.
happened
It's like,
here.
sorry, or
What
we'll
happened
stay
here
open.
was the polls were closing, okay, and she realized she was behind, and that's when they took action to say, hey, we need to extend it so I don't get too far behind. And then
I don't know where you
what
got. I
happened.
don't know that information.
That's what happened. I'm telling you, this is what happened. It was reported.
I
This is what happened. So then, after they got this lawsuit passed to extend the hours, then all of a sudden her camp said, whoa, we found a warehouse full of machines that were not accounted for. This is what was reported. And so now they're saying, whoa, there was some things going on here that weren't, right. It might have been some. Now she's trying to make it a whole big thing, and that, as it still stands right now,
This reporting.
go on Fox.
Yeah.
It's all over the news. Every channel is reporting this, every single channel. And so now I don't think they haven't decided, right? Because of this new scandal with the warehouse full of machines, almost like the TV show scandal.
Look, in reality, what I have a problem with that election is that the Secretary of State was the one administering it. I don't know about this whole lawsuit about counting the votes and everything.
Mhm.
What I think is the ethics behind. So let's go back to that basketball game analogy.
Correct.
All right, we said we were playing till 21, but guess what? Like, I'm the one who decides if your bucket's a bucket. Oh, you make a layup, and I'm like, nah, you fouled me, or something happened, and it doesn't count. And we've agreed on the rules, but if I'm the one in charge, it just looks ethically wrong. That's what I have issues with. I haven't seen this reporting of they're trying to get more votes and everything, but I'll look it up. I'll look for it and I'll do my research on it. So I don't want to comment on that in particular. I'll comment what I have an issue with, which was it was the Secretary of State. How can you administer your own election? And it just looks ethically wrong. I can understand.
That did look ethically wrong. Like, I agree.
But he can be impartial, and I can trust that, because maybe you can be, it's not as if it's impossible, but from the outside, it does not look ethical.
Yeah, and then that was one thing. Like I said, like I said, I'm in Georgia, and I definitely believe Brian Kemp should have recused himself, because the problem is, and this is why it makes a problem. And my thing is, I always believe that you want to do everything possible so that it doesn't look like it's anything improper. You know what I mean? Like, let's not even give you that whole talking point, because that's what they're talking about now. But see, the thing was, you got to understand the lawsuit, right? The lawsuit was entered during the day of the election. It wasn't entered after the election. It was the lawsuit was in. The lawsuit happened the day of the election, not at night. I'm talking about when the polls were still open, and the lawsuit basically says they're suing because they didn't think it was proper for Brian Kemp to be Secretary of State over his own election. And like I said, I agree with the lawsuit, but once again, if you disagree with it, you need to show what was its effect. Because in Georgia,
most of these have been Democrat. Most of these big voting lawsuits. I think the biggest one was
Kerry,
U.S.
John Kerry in 2000, right?
Yeah, U.S. v. Al Gore, or Al Gore v. U.S.
Oh yeah, Al Gore, right. Yeah, my bad. And Florida, it was in Florida again.
And he still lost.
Yeah.
The Supreme Court looked at it. They're like, no, this doesn't make any sense, and they just threw it out immediately. So that's just a side note. Sorry, go ahead.
Oh yeah, no, you're fine. And I just think that, okay, the problem that I have with it, and like I said, I agree with Paul. He should have recused himself. He stepped down now because he's taking his victory lap now. So he's like, yeah, I'm not Secretary of State no more. So now when we do this certification, my name won't be on it. I'm like, but dude, you should have done that a long time ago. Because now when they start talking about voter suppression and all these type of things, he could have made a political move and said, hey, look, if this is how you feel is going, you know what? I will step away. I will step away and do whatever I want to do. So then we won't even we'll still be having this conversation, don't get me wrong. But like I said, when they start talking about voter machines, when they start talking about voter suppression, my question is this. If all those things existed and it's actually truthful, I'm just saying, think with your own brain. I live in Fulton County. That is, where Atlanta is. You understand what I'm saying? That's where the city of Atlanta is, in Fulton County. All the places, the majority of the places complaining are either in predominantly Black areas. When I went to the poll, my polling location had 12 because I live in a quote unquote woke part of Atlanta and we vote. You know what I mean? Like people was out in line and we vote. We had 12 polling machines. So we never had these problems. But if you go to certain parts of Atlanta where people don't normally vote, now all of a sudden you want to come out for Stacey Abrams, the county board of electors are the ones who decide how many machines are going to go to each part. So a situation where if you got Black people running it, you got Black people over the machines, and they're supposed to be the ones that make sure they're working properly. I think it's irresponsible to, like you said, even though it does look bad and it seems nice to blame it on the Secretary of State, nobody at these county and local levels are getting any
and I
heat.
think county clerk is a state elected position in almost every state. And those are the people that do all the logistics for where the polling booths are, how many stations at each booth, or how many booths at each station, etc. Yeah, that's a very good point.
Okay. All right. And then here's my flip side to it, right? Check this out. So in Georgia, right as it stands right now, Stacey Abrams lost. Okay. In the north side of town, there was a Black lady running named, I think her name is Lucy McBath. She beat Republican Karen Handel, right, who was in the special election when I believe what was the Secretary of Health and Human Services, Tom Price, when that whole thing happened, he had an open Senate seat. It was her versus the young dude, John Ossoff. All the people threw all that money into the Georgia elections, whatever. So my question is, if we're going to claim all these things such as voter suppression, how was it that a Black woman was able to unseat a white Republican, okay? And nobody in her district is talking about anything like that. You understand what I'm saying? And it's the same thing.
Because I think it's a good way to transition into like the second, half of the show before we end it. That what you just said, why is nobody talking about that, right? I know I can't be the only one. There were people on my ballot, the sample ballot I got ahead of time, where there were people I had never even heard of. And once I researched these people, I was like, oh my God, they're amazing. Why aren't they being advertised and pushed? This is a shame. If only these people knew. They didn't have to be far left. They didn't have to be far right. There were people perfectly in the middle with way more accolades, way more credentials, way more relatable. Why were they not giving a option or a fair chance or fair news coverage? Probably because they don't have the money, right? So I want to just, Solomon, I'm going to jump back to you because you know more about John James from Michigan, who is the token Black Republican now, I guess, like this handsome guy with his biracial family looking all nice, But I want to go to this guy in my state in Pennsylvania. He was running for governor and he is a libertarian, Ken Krawchuk, right? So Ken actually ran twice against Al was it Al Gore? It was 2002, and then he ran before that also. But he ran 2 different times, and he lost, obviously, and he only got 1% of the vote. And for me, being like a pro-choice conservative, I'm a registered Republican. However, I do have some libertarian, values I align with, so I'm not 100% red. This abortion stance he has was just nothing like I've ever heard of in my life from any politician. So I'm just going to quickly read it just for the sake of getting the information out there that there are other options than pro-choice or pro-life. And then you just tell me, because you're all from different states, it seems like, if you had a candidate similar who was not getting the attention either. So this is what it says on his site, right? He's very intellectual, I should warn you. I don't know about you, but as for me, I'd wish for the best of both worlds. I would decree a world where you could respect the unborn life and respect a woman's right to choose. It's an approach I call pro-option. So he goes on to say that if a woman does not want her unborn child, she must first sign a legal document saying that she thereby abandons her unborn child. If she doesn't want the baby, she doesn't have to keep it. It's pro-choice. But at that point, any individual or organization could then step forward and offer to adopt the abandoned child. If someone else wants the child, they can have it. That's pro-life. Now follow the consequence of that one decree allowing for prenatal adoption. I see 4 options available regarding the unborn child. The first option is that foster parents could ask the woman to please bring the baby to term. The request would be made through the doctor so that the woman's privacy is respected. It's not a request. It is a request, not a demand. The woman can agree or not. If the woman agrees to bring the child to term, then we have saved one baby. That's pro-life. But we have also let the woman decide. It's pro-choice. If the woman agrees to have the baby, I think it's only fair the new parents are responsible for paying medical bills and other things. Many babies are aborted for economic reasons. This first option is guaranteed to save more babies. He goes on to get like way more scientific, right? He says, what happens if the woman says no? What if she doesn't want to carry the baby to term? Again, through the doctor, the second option is for the hopeful foster parents to ask the woman to carry the child as long as possible, long enough that labor could be safely induced before 9 months are up without endangering either the mother or the child to be. With the current state of medical technology, a premature baby can safely be delivered around the 7th month, depending on the circumstance. It would cost more for the premature delivery, but it would still be paid by the foster parents. He ends it with saying, if the woman doesn't want the baby, guess what? She'll just get an abortion. Abortion is still there, right? But we utilize this new technology we have. We're a new generation of people. We need to start thinking in new ways. This guy, his things regarding guns, he said the best way to stop the shootings, and this is based off of years of research he did, was to allow open carry. He said states that had open carry had less mass shootings, less nonsense shootings. Ironically, he said it made no sense when he first discovered it, but when you go through the research, it is there. He had a lot of just different looks at these issues that so many people are just this way or that way. And I think he offered a new field. I'm unaware of any other politician that was thinking like him. And as a young Black minority who is conservative, who is pro-choice, I was like, this is amazing. And I voted for him, and then no one else did. So obviously it got me nowhere. But do you guys have anyone else that was on your ballot that was unique like this, that didn't get any light?
Yeah, go ahead, Paul.
Yeah. Were you referencing John James there?
Well,
Yeah,
I was referencing John James in a sense that he is the new type of Republican on the block, right?
Okay. Oh, okay.
Not the old white racist that the Shade Room said he was.
But I think I agreed with what much of what you said, and I think it's because I think people have this what is it called? The false dilemma. It's a logical fallacy, in that people think if you're pro-choice means you're against life, or if you're pro-life, you're against pro-choice. Like, those are not the only 2 options. Can we work together to figure out like something else? People assume, because, as soon as you kind of even mention a statement that, maybe we shouldn't have abortions, or people assume right away all the way on the other side, but there's a lot of other options, and I think people should really explore that and really let candidates like think about it. But I really enjoyed talking with you guys, and
All right.
I like the discussion.
Thanks.
I
Matt?
appreciate you being on tonight, Paul. Go
Paul.
ahead, Matthew.
Deuces.
All right, Matthew, you ready? Yeah, go
Oh
ahead.
yeah.
Matt.
So I just wanted to say, I think right now is a great time for us to work together. The House the Congress is split right now between the Republicans and Democrats. And what a better way to find common ground and work together to get legislation passed. And I think that, people like what I was hearing tonight, if we can focus on the issues and not the politics, right? Not the investigation, this and the taxes and, whatever else, but focus on real issues. Like, why are there 40,000 vacant homes in Baltimore that has been that way? Like, regardless of political party, why is St. Louis still falling behind economically, right? Why is the economy doing so well, but we have Rust Belt cities like Youngstown, Ohio, some parts of Pittsburgh that aren't doing well? I think if we focus on these and put our energy there, we can bring about some serious solutions and help everybody raise up the economic ladder.
To kind of go off what you just said, why we have these vacancies kind of, right, in these towns. There on my ballot, there were 2 women for a seat in Congress. There was a Republican and a Democrat. The Republican was a fake Republican. She essentially was a Democrat, and she was amazing. Her accolades were amazing, but she was in no way a conservative at all. So there were 2 other women on this ballot, and I was like, whoa, there's a Libertarian and there's a Green Party. Let me check them out. I go online, literally, there's no information for one, and there's one interview for the other. And she said, I just did this because my friend thought it would be cool.
Are you kidding me?
I swear to God, I couldn't make this up.
Yeah.
It's a fact. And she said, I'm a 35-year-old mom. I'm just worried about my kids. I just thought this would be a cool thing to do.
All
I
those
didn't.
such spots,
I didn't
I like that.
What?
A lot of the my answer to your question was going to be, there was I think some appeals judge in Texas where I looked her up. She graduated Harvard law, super young, had already clerked for for Scalia or some conservative Supreme Court justice, and is an appeals court judge in the middle of nowhere, Texas. I'm like, this girl needs to be the forefront of the Republican Party right now, because her resume is super strong. But I don't have the same positivity or optimism that Matt has. I think that with the election, with the way the cards fell, that the next 2 years are going to be pretty much the government. Not very much is going to get passed as far as policy that actually impacts big change, just because the Democratic base is just so what's the phrase? They're just in the trenches. They're locked. They got their heels locked in. And even the moderate Democrats, a lot of the moderate Democrats are just by. I wouldn't be surprised if Pelosi loses in a few years, or doesn't win a primary or something like that in a few years. And because we do have a two house legislature, it's hard to get things passed when they're not of the like mind, and they're so polarized against each other that you have to have, it's going to be easy to get stuff through the Senate, but it has to get to the Senate. And I don't know.
Well,
I'm not very optimistic.
I'll say one thing.
Hold on 1 second, man.
Okay. All right.
We're going to bring in Anthony real quick. Yeah, Anthony, go ahead and introduce yourself. Let us know where you're from. And you can kind of give a little background, I guess, about your, not necessarily, I guess, your political leanings, beliefs, or whatever the case, but it's just pretty much where you fit, independent, Democrat. What do you consider yourself, if nothing? Let's give us a little background before you say what you got to say.
Okay. Hi, everybody. How you doing? Can you hear me?
Yeah,
Yes, sir. You're good.
Good. Yeah, my name's Anthony Hegler. I would say I'm a Democrat. Well, I'm an independent within the Democratic Party. I bounce around because I have some conservative views. I guess you say I'm a moderate. But really, the only conservative leaning I have is I'm pro 2A, and I think that comes from me being a veteran of the Army. and I voted for Stacey for this midterm election for governor. And I'm originally from Milwaukee, Wisconsin. I've been in Georgia probably about the last, on and off since 2004, because I was in the military, moving around a little bit between Savannah and Fort Bragg, North Carolina.
Thank you for your service.
Oh, you're welcome. You're welcome.
So you
I always
voted.
feel weird.
Say it again.
I always feel weird. I always feel weird when people say that to me. I don't know.
Yeah, I do too. Yeah, it's kind of a weird thing because it's like, what do you say? Do you say thank you? Do you say it's like you?
So you're welcome.
No, I have
Right.
sisters who are active Army, so
Right.
they're weird. They feel weird about it too. So what time did you vote? Is the real question. What time did you vote?
She said, "What time did you vote?"
Right. Well, I voted because I always vote the very first day of early voting.
Okay.
Yeah, that's what I did early voting too.
What made you vote for her?
Huh?
What made you vote for her? Because you seem to be kind of like in the middle, right? Of conservative and liberal a little bit.
I voted for her as far as the Medicaid expansion because I have a grandmother. Well, for one, I had my grandfather in 2011. He got a real bad staph infection, and he got real sick. And basically, it got to a point where they had to dip into his retirement fund for he's a retired machinist, and they were taking like thousands of dollars out of his retirement account. And eventually, my grandfather got to the point. I think I don't know if you ever heard how old people feel when they get in a certain position when they get to a certain point in their life, they're ready to go with God. I guess as they call it, the old folks say.
Right.
And, I think he felt like he became to be a burden because the cost, it was, as far as his health declining, and my grandma had to, take care of it, and the family had to pitch in and put money to make sure that he had, could, for the treatment that he needed for his staph infection. So ever since then, like now my grandmother, she's on Medicaid and she's Medicare. She's an older lady, early 70s. I want to make sure that she had those benefits for healthcare because she can't afford, a $5,000, fee when you go to the emergency room if you get sick.
Yeah.
And then as far as criminal justice reform, as far as the cash bail system, basically you got people sitting in jail because they can't afford to just, pay the bail. You know what I'm saying? So they're sitting in there, months at a time and maybe years at a time. And then as far as, I don't know, I felt like she had a message of everyone, you know what I'm saying? It wasn't just, she talked about veterans, she talked about law enforcement, she talked about, if you were a Muslim, if you were wherever it was more of a everybody type speech. That's why I voted for her.
Okay. Go ahead. I guess my question would be because now I like and I respect everything that you just said. And see, me and this is one, like I said, he's one of these guys who I consider like a Democrat. I know sometimes we'll kind of go back and forth on Facebook. We've never really, ever since I first started talking to this guy, I said, I know he probably is not on the same side as me, but at least he comes with some logic to what he says, or he has some technical reasoning behind it. What you said makes absolute sense to me for you, and you have your own story as of why you did it. Now, my question to you is, if somebody, and this is where we were heading to with the rest of this discussion, if I said I voted for Stacey Abrams just because she was Black or just because she was a woman, do you see anything wrong with that?
I don't know. I'm gonna be honest with you. It's problematic, and at the same time, I can understand it being an African American and understanding our history and where we came from and how we, especially how Black women, have not been, they haven't. This would be the first. If she would have been elected, she'd been the first Black woman in the country to be a governor, in the United States. And then the thing is, it's crazy that we're still talking about the first Black woman, there's a first Black man, and this and that. But the right thing, the right thing to do is not just go off the person's color, but to look at what they're bringing to the table, because we've had a lot of Black politicians come up and say they're going to do this and this and that, and people, instead of paying attention to their message, they just vote for the person because they're a Black person, and which is, I guess you say, it's not right.
Okay, and then just to give some quick, I guess, kind of geographic. Who's your congressman?
John Lewis.
Okay, so you live in the 5th district. Okay, I just want to give some geographic perspective, because I live right below him in David Scott's district, but I stay in the city of South Fulton area, kind of like the Camp Creek area, which is David Scott's district. So I live in the northern extreme of his district. So yeah. So basically he lives in John Lewis's district, which is basically going to be the majority of what we consider Atlanta. So John Lewis is all downtown, all the stadiums, all that type of stuff.
Well, actually, go ahead. I'm sorry, I'm going to cut you. I live on the borderline of, I live in Stockbridge. I'm at the very bottom tip of his district.
Wow. Okay, I didn't even know Stockbridge was in his district, but okay, yeah, that's fine. And see, this is going back to what you said. This is just something that I do understand the plight, but this is just one of the things that we were talking about when we talk about, if you're going to vote for someone because they're Black, if you're going to vote for someone because they're making history, it only always seems to only work when the person is a Democrat, right? Because I can understand it in Georgia, just to be honest with you, because if the person on the other side is white, right, then it seems like it's a little different, because most of the time this time it's Black woman Democrat running versus white Republican. I get it. But then my question is, why is it never sometimes received the same way? Like John James, for example, he could have been the first Black senator since Reconstruction, basically, in the state of Michigan to be elected to the Senate. We had a Black guy in New Hampshire who was running for Congress. He lost. He was a Black Republican running against a white woman and lost. We had Maya Love in Utah, lost to another white person. And it's a situation to me where when I call it the Black Coalition. The Black Coalition is Barack Obama. The Black Coalition is Oprah, Beyonce, Jay-Z. Why is it that if we're going to try to give this quote unquote pro-Black message, why is the messaging only apply when the person is a Democrat? And like I said, if it's a Black Republican versus a Black Democrat, I could fully understand it. But what I'm saying is all those Black people in Detroit, they looked at 70-something-year-old Debbie Stabenow and said, you could relate to this woman or whatever decision that you made to make that decision versus John James. And I look at it, John James was a vet. I mean, he's a family man. Him and his dad created a multi-million-dollar business, and they employed like 200 Black employees in the Detroit area. So it's not, I understand some people might be like, oh, he a white woman. You know how it goes. And you start he's a cliche Republican, well-spoken guy who dates white women. I get it. But what I'm always saying is, if we really want to make a power move in this country, couldn't we attack it better if we support each other from both sides? Because then that way we can actually be viable. Because, like, for example, if I was going to run in Georgia as a Black Republican, right? And let's say I was going to run up against David Perdue, and I want to take him out of the Senate. Now, if you run a Black Democrat against me, either way, we got a Black person in there. But it's like Republicans know, well, Black Republicans do not get their people's vote. So my question is, what do you think, what do you think about why it's only like the Black Democrats who get the movie stars, who get the rappers? You know what I mean? Every rapper in Atlanta came out for Stacey. Every radio station, Ricky Smiley, Tom Joyner, Steve Harvey, they were all so pro. Stacey Abrams, also pro. Andrew Gillum. They didn't mention the guy in New Hampshire. They didn't mention John James. And that's just one thing that I really wish that, like I said, if you want to make this Black power move, like I said, I'm with it, but I want to see it happen on both sides. So why do you think that always only applies to Democrats?
I think what happens is once you attach that R or you attach that C, let's be honest, over the last, even I say both parties, the Democrats have, with 40 years, Democrats haven't really did anything, even though I believe they haven't did anything, but I believe in now holding them accountable. because we haven't held them accountable for anything that they promised us to do or whatever. But when it comes to the Republicans, black people, I'm gonna be honest, the majority of black people, they hate Republicans.
They do.
Because the majority, I'm just saying from my experience, talk to other black people or just paying attention to social media, seeing all black people talk about the Republican Party, over the time I've been on social media. It's just it's how can I put this? The Republican Party has not put out a platform or has said anything or even really engaged into the black community to really just say, get them to come out and vote for them. Because when I read all different sources. I read conservative, I read liberal sources. But when I watch conservative news outlets, all I see is these pundits. It's like when they're talking about the black community, they're either calling us thugs, welfare queens. It's like they're just talking about it like we're just like nothing. So I can see black people just like, man, I ain't fucking with them. Excuse my language. I'm not messing with Republicans.
Adults, though.
Okay. Yeah, I'm not messing with Republicans. You know what I'm saying? Because if Republicans really wanted black people to come vote for them, they would change their rhetoric towards the black community. You know what I'm saying? And I do think it's, and part of it too is I think black people have been conditioned they're not how can I say, they're not doing their research on the individual that they're seeing. Is that once they see that art, they automatically cancel out, which I think is wrong. I myself, I've been voting. I've voted Democrats as I can vote, but I still look at the candidates and see what their platform is on the other side. And it's just, I think black people just, for one, need to educate themselves on each candidate, have an open mind to see what that person's talking about. Then I also think on the flip side, the Republican Party needs to check those people that, have just said, have crazy rhetoric about black community. And then another thing, black people attached, like when they see, white nationalist groups or white supremacy groups or Nazi groups attached to, or people like David Duke endorsing, Republican candidates and stuff like that, you're going to cancel out a lot of black people because they associate that, that white supremacy or whatever with the Republican Party.
Well, that's kind of like similar to the guy who was running for governor in my state, the Libertarian. I emailed him because I want to meet him, but I was talking to my husband. I said, no one knew he existed. He could have easily got the black vote, but guess what? He wasn't looking for the black vote, so he didn't even try to market himself to them. And I think that's the issue here, right? Like a lot of Republicans, they automatically know they're going to be met with this stigma, so they don't even attempt to just override it and try to get the vote anyway. They just say, screw it, we'll trail forward. And I think that's us as the new generation of black conservatives are here for. We're here to be in the front, because what happens, like Solomon said, when it's black Democrat against black Republican, what's going to happen then? Identity politics can't necessarily play into it because we're both black.
Right.
And I'll say something about that. I don't think, I've been a Republican since middle school, and here's the thing. Republicans have reached out to black people. We just don't play identity politics, and we don't speak to black communities like Democrats speak to black communities. We don't talk about, well, I won't go into messaging, but what I will say is when you start looking at black candidates, look at Will Hurd, all right? Look at Arthur Fletcher, who passed away. They dubbed him the father of affirmative action. He was a black Republican. Have you ever heard of Arthur Fletcher?
Mm-hmm.
The father of affirmative action. He was a Republican and started affirmative action. When you look at Republican policies that favor historically underserved communities, the data is there. There's a background there to support that Republicans support underserved communities. We just don't wear it as a badge to say, we're helping the downtrodden and things like that. I think that we can use better messaging to get out. Another thing that we don't do is we don't do the canvassing in terms of the, what do they call those things, like protest type things, where you're going out marching. Republicans don't do that like liberals do it. Liberals have an incredible messaging system that gets to the heart of people and gets the messaging right to where the voters are. Republicans need help. It's not that they're not doing the work. It's just that they need help with messaging. And
but I mean, you have a good point that the Democratic Party, 100%, their marketing machine just completely shits on the Republican Party. But on a certain level, it's kind of moot. Like it doesn't really matter in elections. Like there's a lot of other things that influence campaign strategy. Just look at the millions of dollars that were dumped into Beto's campaign and whatever.
Right,
and Ted Cruz is a shitty candidate. I mean, he's an incredibly bright guy, incredibly great debater, incredibly great public speaker, very smart guy, but he's just not marketable. And he was able to carry. What's up?
Can we acknowledge the money
Breaking up, AJ.
to rig
Sounds like-
elections?
Huh?
The Democrats are essentially rigging elections. They've been doing it for 60 years.
Oh, yeah.
What they're doing is and I know this, and I can't say how I know it, and me and Solomon talked about this, but I will say there's a powerful organization that starts with an N, ends with a P, and what they do is they have their employees have street teams, and these street teams on election day, they take the money that they've raised and they go pay homeless people and they go pay drug addicts to vote Democrat. And they take them there and they pay them to do it. So this isn't anything new. This has been going on since like the 50s, the 60s, and so forth. But why is it that they are legally allowed to do this type of fake voting and canvassing and whatever you want to call it? Like the numbers at this point, I don't even trust them because now I have an inside source. Why know for a fact this is occurring in major states like Pennsylvania?
Yeah, I think that could be a part of it, but when we start talking about, I guess, to the extent of, like I said, it's not right, But the one thing I have to say is about what Matthew said, and I think that mentality is one of the problems that the Republican Party has, and I think that is the major complaint of the Black community is we're not around. We're saying that we have this message that appeals to you, but the Black community is saying, but you're not around, you're not here to give the message. And it's not necessarily to say that the Democrats are just, around and just doing this, but they are at least visible. They are at least seen. Even if it's only around, I know how the other good saying is Democrats only come around like a booty call during election time. I hear that a lot. You know what I mean?
All right.
But the thing about it is, if you're still around for a booty call, you're still around, even if it's just for a one-night stand. Guess what? You're still there. You get to make the magic happen, and it is what it is. But I think that's something that the Republicans need to fix, because if we say that we're losing the Black community, and the Black community is saying, well, we might not mess with y'all, or whatever the case may be. The thing is, we still have to make the attempt. It's not playing identity politics to go into these communities, because the same thing the Republicans have
to play a little bit to win on a national level. You have to play a little bit of identity politics.
But the thing is, nobody says identity politics when they're out there on these rural farms talking to white people.
Right.
It's only identity politics when they're talking about Black people. So we have to be honest about this thing. If we got a white candidate who's going around the farms and he's taking pictures with shotguns and stuff like that, going and eating pancakes and waffles at the local guy who's had a local restaurant for 30 years, and we don't say that's identity politics when he's shaking hands with all these farmers and things, then why is it all of a sudden identity politics when we say, and maybe they don't know our messaging, maybe they don't know what we have to bring, but if you say, if we go into the Black community, all of a sudden it flips, because trust me, Democrats will go wherever they feel they can get votes. They go into these upscale white neighborhoods, they go into the hood, they get us to go out there. Seriously, I'm pretty sure Anthony know these white liberals who will sit there and tell you about your downtrodden life and history and try to make it seem like they.
I would actually say that, in Texas, I had the feeling, especially like going up to the time of YBLS and after YBLS, that there was a lot more targeted campaigning by Republicans to the Black community and to Black voters than what I would expect from an urban Democratic Party. And I actually got the vibe that the Republican Party is realizing that, oh, there is this huge untapped well of potential voters that we only really need to get, 10 to 15% of them to just completely destroy our opposition in an election. But why don't we try to use that? Why don't we try to start campaigning directly to the Black community? And I think that on top of that, the Republican Party has shown, especially with the Trump campaign in 2016, that they are much more efficient with the campaign dollars that they spend. If you look at the spending pattern of the Trump campaign versus the Hillary Clinton campaign, and also they were able to raise money more efficiently. So I have a lot of confidence in the RNC, especially when we get close to 2020. My only question is the Republican Party going to use some of those dollars and aggressively target the Black community? I hope they do, and if they do, I don't really see how they can. I think that's kind of the key to them just destroying.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
And I was gonna say another thing I see where Republicans mess up is when, like, for example, if I ask a conservative, hey, what is your, what do you have to offer me? What do you have to offer the Black community? The first thing they say to you, oh, what has the Democratic Party done for you? Yes, I know they've done shit, but I'm asking you because I'm really trying to find out. I'm trying to find out what is your platform. What do you have to offer me? So don't come to me, and if I ask you a question and then you come back with a question at me, at that point now we shut down the whole conversation. So I think when someone says this, asks you that question, what is your platform? Say, okay, that is the opportunity for Republicans to say, hey, this is what our plan is. This is what our platform is right here. Because at that point, if you don't do that, it's just like they're just going to say, all right, I'm just going to continue to vote Democrat.
Yeah, but I don't know if we should be looking to. I guess maybe that's just a mentality thing, because when I look at a political candidate, I don't look at them and think, what can they do for me? I just think of, okay, what kind of policies are they going to be voting yes or no on? And does that agree with my moral compass, my ideological basis?
Right.
I'm not.
Right. That's what I mean.
I don't feel like the government owes me anything. I mean, I guess maybe that's. I don't think I'm a libertarian, but maybe I do have a little bit in me or something. But I don't look at the government thinking that it owes me anything.
Hey, I mean the same. I mean, so everything you just said. I mean, I just said it different. I'm sorry. I didn't put it in those words per se, or whatever. What policies you're going to pass and of that nature. That's what I meant actually.
Yeah. I don't think he meant from a like. I know that's the direction that a lot of conservatives and Republicans will go, and will start saying like handouts. That's not. I don't think that's what he was meaning. I think he's saying, what is your platform? What is it that the Republican Party can do? You say, hey, there's crime here and blah, blah, whatever it is, the criminal justice reform, anything any direction that we want to go, I feel that we need to get our messaging across and we need to do a better job at it. Doesn't necessarily mean that we're going to be successful, because the thing about it is you have to understand this monolith that the Democrats had did not happen overnight. It's been solidified over time. But the other problem that I see is the candidate choice. You always have candidates who are Republican, who are not necessarily to say, because to be honest with you, I respect John Lewis, but I think it's about time for him to hang it up. I don't think he is quote unquote. I mean, even David Scott. I mean, he's okay. He does a good job in the district. I'm not going to knock him, but I don't feel like I would much rather see. Like, I feel like Kasim Reed, even though all the corruption stuff is coming out, I don't want to get started on Kasim Reed. But the one thing I can say about Kasim Reed was I felt that he was closer to me personally. You know what I mean? Like, maybe it was just his age. It wasn't necessarily whatever he had going on in City Hall, but maybe the fact that he was a little bit younger kind of played a little bit to it. But it's a situation where I just look at it like, the candidates who the Republican Party normally run as Republicans, to me, do not seem to be relatable, would not feel comfortable being in a Black church or in a Black part of town, or even, going around saying, hey, look, I mean, you could have a concert at Will Creek Amphitheater, and you try to bring the Black Republican out or something, and I feel like he'd be scared to walk out there and just say, hey, I'm around and I like R&B as well.
Wait, I gotta push back, because you got that on
Okay.
both sides. You've got that on both. I've seen Democrats that, they're in the hood. They live in the hood. I've seen Republicans that live in the hood. And I've seen Democrats that
I haven't. I've never seen that.
Where do you live at?
I have seen it.
Yeah, where do you live?
You've seen it, Naomi?
I've seen it in Philly, yeah.
Yeah, I've seen it because I'm from Baltimore. So I've seen like
Okay.
No. See,
I mean, well, yeah.
in Georgia,
I've seen high and mighty Democrats that are just hidey hooty tooty, and the same for Republicans. So it's not a one shoe size fits all.
Yeah, and I think there was a study that came out a couple of weeks ago that showed that the demographic breakdown of the people on the farthest left are really rich and really white, almost like a monolith. So it's funny how the people that you would stereotype as being your classical waspy, rich conservative Republican are actually the same constituent that represents the people on the far la la land left.
I'll say one more point to that. I went to like a pretty prestigious school, Georgetown University, rich liberals from Jersey, mainly from Jersey, right? So this is what they'll do. Check this out. And I'm not knocking the school, because this happens all over America, but this is what liberals will do. And I'm not saying this, just for liberals, but generally, Caucasian people, they will protest with you. But when they're in school and when they're in their social life, they don't integrate. So they'll be with you out on the streets protesting, but they won't invite you to their house for dinner. These are the liberals that say
this is what the Malcolm X clip.
I gotta testify for that one. I gotta clap for that one.
Yeah,
we used to talk about it all the
You
time.
very, very deeply on that one. I know.
We used to talk about it all the time.
Guys, we have to end on that.
All right, go ahead.
Hold on. I want Anthony to say something real quick. I think he has something.
Go ahead.
And then we'll let Cordell go, and then we'll kind of knock it out, because Cordell did come in. Go ahead, Anthony. You have something to say?
No, I would say I kind of disagree with it, because I have, especially when I got out of the Army, I went to Kennesaw State for college, and I got very involved in different activism and this stuff, especially during the time when like Michael Brown and Trayvon Martin got shot. I did see a lot of white liberal people. They protest with us, and they would actually invite, we would all go back to their crib and hang out, or we would meet, go to their parents' house and of that nature. But I do agree in the sense that you probably do have some white liberals who are fake. They're they act like their friend, and then when they get in different circles, it's a different thing.
And then Cordell, I guess you'll get the last word tonight. Go ahead, sir.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm sorry if that slam just came very loudly. I just wanted to touch on the nature of the white leftist. I keep pushing this word leftist instead of liberal, because I like to, because I call myself a classical liberal, I guess you could say. I definitely agree with Matthew that I see this kind of mentality, this kind of behavior happening. And Matthew said a lot of these people from Georgetown are from Jersey. Yeah. A lot of people from the tri-state area, they happen to have this very, I guess you could call it a little bit of a segregationist attitude, but they want to act like they're down, because at the end of the day, the white leftist has got to be one of the most disgusting people I've of them all. I mean, I don't like the ardent black supremacists, I guess you could call it. I don't like the other kinds of social justice warriors, but the white leftist has to be the most dangerous, because they're the ones who are just virtue signaling because they want to make sure they look good, so they can say, these are the bad white people. We're the good white people. We're the ones who are down with the cause, man. We're the ones who are fighting for you, man. We're there with you. And so whatever you say, they will always prop up every victimized group, every group that wants to hold that victim mentality. always prop them up. They'll always prop up they'll always say black people are oppressed. They'll always say women make this amount on the dollar all the time. But then when you go into their circles, as Matthew was saying, they're all just they just stick to themselves. They're sticking to their the finance bros with the marketing girls down the Lower East Side. You see them in their packs. You don't ever see them mixing with other people like that. They just like to stick to themselves, but yet they always
whenever they want to borrow your clothes for a Halloween party and they want to dress up and
exactly.
I got one last thing to say on that.
Okay, go ahead. That's it. Yeah.
Now it's the same thing on both sides,
Right.
Because as Solomon, as you know, both of us in the Army, right? You're in the Army, right?
I'm Army too.
Okay, you're Army too, right? So I was in youth spots, and I was the only black guy in an infantry unit. Now, most of those white boys I served with were from Kentucky, Mississippi, Louisiana, from the backwoods of nowhere. Now, they'll act all cool with you. They'll act all cool with you and be good friends with you. Now, this is why I saw a change. Once I start talking about the different issues that affecting our community, then they start turning their backs on me.
Right.
They start saying, "Oh, you're dividing. You're Anthony Hegler, you changed." Like, no, I've always been black. It's just you never heard me talk about black issues.
Mm-hmm.
So it's the same on both sides. But
I'd rather hang out with them Duck Dynasty guys than hang out with the.
They are wild. They fun though. They're wild fun though.
Yeah. Well, like I said,
who I'd rather drink with. I'd rather drink with your Duck Dynasty guys than the guy.
Okay, well, like I said, man, this has been a great discussion, and once again, it shows that, like I said, we don't always have to agree on everything, but we can come together in a logical standpoint and discuss issues that we actually seem to care about. So I want to thank all of our